Om Shanti. Good evening. Welcome to Raj Yoga Essentials. And as usual, we're going to start this evening with reflection. So no worries if you have no experience. Just see where this commentary takes you. So inviting you to be seated comfortably. And if you choose, experimenting with eyes open in a natural, relaxed way. So it can be looking slightly downwards. And allowing the self a moment to come physically and mentally into the present. Very aware of sitting here at this time. Almost as if the past day falls away. And all that exists is right now. Freeing my mind to be here now. And what thought do I choose at this very moment to hold in my mind? What would I like to experience just in this present moment? What do I choose? Maybe just a thought about the real me, the self. Who am I? The one that is choosing. Who am I? Feeling my mind jump here and there. Searching for a place to anchor my sense of self. And then going deeper. The mind becoming still and steady. Moving towards a deeper sense of self. A quiet, still place. A depth. Arriving at a sense of self that was always there, but long forgotten. Quite simply, I am the living being. Not needing to jump around for a sense of self, but become still. I am this peaceful, living being. And the mind settles into that thought, like sinking into a comfortable chair. My mind sits there. I am this peaceful being. Om Shanti. So, the essence of Raj Yoga. Every week we take a different approach to this. And today, and there was a word that kept coming into my mind around the essence of this spiritual study. And I think it's a word that many are not experiencing right now. I think many of us might be feeling like we have really no control over what's going on. We don't even know what's going on. We're just moving along day by day. And in the little ways we can, we try to have control. But this sense of maybe even feeling a little bit of a victim. Yeah, things are happening to me and I'm doing my best to keep it together. And I remember the first time I was in my teens and through a series of circumstances stumbled across a book about someone who became a leading psychoanalyst, leading in that field, and he was in a very difficult situation, and in that situation where it appeared he had no control over his life, he was thinking a lot about how he was responsible for the quality of his life. He was actually being held in a concentration camp, so no control over whether he ate or how much he ate or whether he slept or how much he slept or really whether he would live or die. No control, it seemed, over any of that. And yet, at that very moment in time, he was thinking a lot, and it became the foundation of his theory, that I am the one responsible for making my life meaningful. And I remember recognizing, as I read that in my mind, that's spirituality. And so what was coming into my mind a lot, and I think is the essence of Raj Yoga, is personal responsibility. even if externally it may not seem that we have control, that's not actually where the control needs to be. What I need to gain mastery or control of or take responsibility for is my inner world, my thoughts, my attitudes, my perceptions. I need to take control at that level for a meaningful outer life. Then whatever can be happening, but I can make that moment meaningful depending on how I choose to think about it. And when we talk about choice and responsibility, we understand in Raj Yoga that to be able to take back that responsibility of my inner world, to be able to exercise some degree of choice, we're going to have to work with two things, knowledge and power. So that's the two things we focus on in Raj Yoga, is knowledge and power. Now, if we look at the life of the first student who's pictured behind me, Brahma Baba, that's really how his spiritual journey began, or at least took off. He, of course, was very religious-minded from childhood, very religious-minded, a good character, philanthropic, all the classic ways we think of spirituality. But in terms of spirituality really taking off, it was a little later in his life, and he had created externally a very beautiful life. He was a very successful, self-made businessman. He had a beautiful family, well respected in the community, philanthropic, outstanding character, honest, the list goes on and on. Really beautiful life. Externally, everything seemed wonderful. You look and say, wow, what a high quality of life. But in terms of how we're defining spirituality, where quality of life actually happens, his inner world, I mean, his outer world looked great, but in terms of his inner world, he felt there was a restlessness or a seeking. He did not feel that he had that level of power or wisdom to be able to have that inner personal responsibility, what he called self-sovereignty, being able to choose what he was going to think, when he'd think it, as long as he wants, sustain that thought, no sense of being influenced or reacting, and being able to lead his life, his inner world, through the lens of virtues or values. So if we look honestly at ourselves, in terms of the outer, we're great at taking control, and we can even forcefully force ourselves to look a certain way on the outside. So, we can be speaking to someone and externally be very polite and respectful. But when we're honest, and I would say that is the number one quality that Brahma Baba had, when we're honest and we look inside, is it matching the outside? Are those feelings genuinely there? And so really focusing more on what's happening inside and taking responsibility inside for what I'm thinking and how I'm choosing to respond. And what Brahma Baba recognized is there's probably gaps in his understanding, but also there was a lack of power. So we often say, so-and-so did something to me in the past, whether it's good or bad, as we perceive it, so-and-so does, and I just can't stop thinking about it. So-and-so hurt me, and I mean, the whole line of thinking is so victim consciousness that somebody hurt me, I am the victim, and now it continues to hurt. Wow, they hurt me so deeply, I just can't seem to let it go. That person has so much control over me that they determine how I feel and what I think about. And that is the antithesis of spirituality. So, how to take back spirituality, being able to take back that personal responsibility for my inner world, the power to choose how I'm going to respond, what I'm going to think, how I'm going to see things, my perceptions, to really take back that self-mastery. And so how are we going to do this, and what is the path? And we feel this is a spiritual endeavor. But where does this knowledge and this power come from? And that's exactly what Raj Yoga explores. So the knowledge looks at, how did I lose that capacity? What happened to me? Do I really understand myself? Why would I long for that? I must have had it once, and now I long for it because I've lost it. So having a real understanding of the self. And what the knowledge tells us is that the moment we started to perceive ourselves in a very external way, we gave our control over to the external. And what are the external ways that we perceive ourselves, which we call body consciousness? What are these external ways that we perceive ourselves? Well, the first one is we think we're the body. And believe it or not, the body is part of the external. I know many of you might disagree with me. It's actually part of the external in terms of what it's made of. It's made up of elements of matter. There comes a point when it's not living anymore, and it will return to the elements of matter, the earth, as we say, dust to dust. So this package I'm sitting in actually belongs more to the external world than it does to me. And I remember once, I don't know, you maybe, we have these really profound experiences as children and teenagers, and they just sort of come into our head and we think they're a little weird, and of course no adult can really help us. So we eventually just forget about them. But I remember once being a teenager, and there was such a powerful thought that kept coming into my head. Of course I thought I was crazy. Who am I going to tell it to? But the thought that kept coming was that this body, the outside of the body, the form, if you will, is more of an inline than an outline of me. And, trying to articulate, the thought would come and I was like, I don't even know what that quite means, but I feel the feeling that went with it was that this body belongs more, it's more the outline of the world relative to me than the outline of me relative to the world. And I don't know if that made sense, but the idea being it seems to belong more to the world than it does to me. So thinking we're the body is part of the external. And then by virtue of thinking I'm this body, a whole bunch of other external identifiers come tumbling one after the other. So we start to identify ourselves via this body as having certain relationships. That's my mother, that's my father, that's my sister, etc. So all of these different relationships, and they're all relative to the body, which is why we use the term relatives. And then we start to go deeper. This word mind becomes very expansive. All my different possessions, my phone, my car, my house, it goes on. And all of the different positions or image or status. And this is the big one. This is sort of the end game, and it's really the one that traps us. We sometimes use the term external validation or the phrase name and fame, name and regard. Some like this term ego, but it's really just this very external sense of self. My sense of value now is wrapped up in things outside of me. And so you can see what might happen. So now those things, if that's where I think my identity is and my sense of value is, those things now have tremendous control over me. And I will think about them a lot. So if we watch our thoughts during the day, what do we think about? And they probably are these different external sense of the self. These different places, it's like we've cut ourselves up and deposited it in these different places, our sense of image, our sense of value, our sense of self, all out there. My relationships, my possessions, my position, my image, my stuff, even my past story, it's all out there. So that has tremendous control. And so I start to become a bit of a victim. Well, I feel unhappy because my device isn't working. Sounds crazy when we say it out loud, that this device could have so much control. Or, that meeting at work didn't go well. I think everyone thought I was a bit of an idiot. This is such a drop in the bucket of things that could happen to us, but it will sit there and gnaw at us. Because my identity is in the approval of others. So remarkable control. It's very difficult to take personal responsibility for myself, my inner world, when these things are pulling me all the time and they're constantly changing, and I am very much enslaved to those different changes. So Raj Yoga looks a lot at understanding that happened and the remedy, which is to look at a different identity of self, one that might actually be true. We have this word authentic or real, and we talk about when I'm putting up a show, I don't feel authentic. And so when we talk about, okay, my image is now out there, it's like there's this show, this image, this sort of two-dimensional sense of self that's been created, and I won't feel authentic in that sense of self, no matter how deeply invested in it I am. It is taking away my authenticity. The word that we use in spirituality is purity, but the sense of being real or authentic, I don't feel it. I feel like I'm kind of on all the time, acting. And so how to have an authentic or real sense of self, it means my sense of self can't be out there in an image, coming into a more pure or eternal sense of self, truthful. And so we use the word soul or soul consciousness, that I am not the body, and I'm not defined by those relationships, and I'm not defined by the possessions or the positions, because they're constantly changing. Constantly changing. So if you strip away all of those things, what's left is pure me. I, the soul, the living being. And, I'm so used to saying, okay, but I'm Judy. No, I'm going to take away that. Judy's the name of the body. I'm going to take that away, okay. But I'm the sister of so-and-so. Actually, no, we're going to put that aside for the moment. But I got that degree in university. I'm going to put that aside for the moment. Putting all of those aside, what's left? Stripping all of those externals away, what's left? Of course, the most challenging to let go of in all of that is the body. You can say, oh yeah, no problem, I can, but to not think of myself as the body. And it's, of course, quite liberating, but what it does is it moves us from a very quantitative sense of self to the world of qualities. What will be the experience of myself won't be physical or visible. It's going to be something invisible, but still very real, very powerful, very tangible. A quality. I can feel my presence, my personality, my nature. That's what I will start to feel, my thoughts, my feelings, all the invisible stuff, and we're back to our inner world. So once we start to have this soul conscious or spiritual exploration of self, it automatically moves us into the inner world, and that's where I'm trying to gain mastery or responsibility. So this idea of I am a soul, and do I have mastery over myself? Do I have a sense of my own value, and therefore my entire function, what I dedicate that personal responsibility to, is protecting the honor of my own value? Even the word value or valuable, in English it's connected to the idea of values. So who am I, the soul? I'm not physical. I'm not all these external things, these temporary things. So I am living, I am thinking, I am operating. As I'm sitting here talking to you right now, there's thoughts, there's interactivity, I am functioning, I'm living, I'm present. I'm not the body, but I'm very present. I'm using the body to express through, but I'm the one thinking and reasoning and expressing through the body. And the body is powerful, but what is not the responsibility of the body, what's my responsibility, is the qualities through which I think and reason and express. I can do it peacefully, patiently, or I could do it forcefully. So I am the spiritual being, and I am the keeper of values. This idea of soul, that is the realm of my responsibility, to maintain that spirituality, the precious nature of life, but also the qualities that I am operating through. That's my responsibility, the virtues. So moving, it's actually an incredible simplification of life, because now my agenda is shifting slightly, and that sense of responsibility is back in my control. I might say be interacting with someone. I don't have control over what they're going to do. I don't have control over any sudden things that shift in the drama. What I do have control over is how I respond. Through what virtues will I respond? That's soul consciousness. So let's take a moment to see if we can experience this idea of being a soul. And then we'll see if there's any questions or thoughts that you want to share, and you can do that in the chat box. So, sitting comfortably, and really, theoretically, I shouldn't have to close my eyes to experience a sense of myself, but we are rusty at experiencing that, so we're trying to push away any distractions. I understand that, but seeing if I can do it with the eyes open in a natural way. And as I sit here, looking out through the physical eyes, I can look at the body and be very aware of its presence. I can observe the body. And if I choose to, I can direct it to move, and I can observe it moving. And for so long, I just did that naturally, automatically, without thought. But now I look at it very thoughtfully, this relationship I have with this body. I am able to observe it. And suddenly, just by identifying myself as the one who is observing the body, I start to feel that these are two separate things. There is the body that I express through, that can move. And there's me, the one who uses the body to express, the one observing the body. There's no loss in experiencing myself to be separate. It's just different. If anything, I start to feel a sense of self-mastery, back in the driver's seat. The body is responsible for movement, expression, and I am the still point inside, the one that gives life to this body so that it can move. As long as I am in this body, it is living, able to move. But if I were to no longer be in this body, the body would fall down, become non-living. The body is a wonder, but I am a greater wonder, which the body depends on. Starting to focus in on just the experience of me, letting awareness of the body start to move out of focus, and taking my attention towards the self. I am operating behind the forehead, that place where thinking happens. That is me. It's like a shift in reference. It's not that there is the body and then I am a point inside, but I am here and this body is wrapped around me. I'm hidden inside. I cannot be seen with the physical eyes, but I feel my presence. I am a point of life, spiritual living energy, unique energy, in that I can think, decide, remember, all these amazing living abilities. And when I am completely myself, I am peaceful. Nothing can disturb my peace when I am completely myself. But again and again through the day, I forget myself, thinking I am the body, and so I lose the power to be peaceful. My peace is not taken away by anything outside. I lose my peace by forgetting myself. So my first responsibility is to remember I am a soul and genuinely experience that. Om Shanti. The time has flown by, so if there's anyone out there And if you have any questions or anything you want to share, feel free to just put it into the chat box of the YouTube stream and it will reach. Okay. It's a very interesting experience where I'm just looking at a camera and I have no idea what's going on. But in keeping with tonight's topic, it doesn't matter. I'm still responsible for myself. So if there are no questions, absolutely fine. We conclude with just a final commentary and a reminder that our next session is going to be meditation. We call it Insperience, on Saturday, on this YouTube channel, on Saturday at 1 o'clock, 45 minutes. So it's a chance to go into this experience, these spiritual experiences, and really exercise our mind. And then at 2 o'clock is Inner Fitness. And I think this week it's Peaceful Lifestyle, I think is the topic. So that will be on Zoom. You can certainly get the information through emailing us if you want to join the Inner Fitness. So we're just going to conclude in the last couple of minutes here with just another chance to try and, it's very rusty, but see if we can experience ourselves in that very true or spiritual way. Whenever I am looking to experience myself as a soul, the first thing I will immediately do is concentrate my awareness to that place behind the forehead. And the body will seem to be fading away. It's still there, but not my point of focus. %100% of my focus needs to be on the self. An openness to let go of all the roles and responsibilities and relationships and just focus completely, exclusively on the self if I want to have the experience. Taking my awareness to a single point of focus. I, the soul, pure being. I am seated behind the forehead. It's like being in the penthouse of a very tall building. This body being the building. And this space in which I sit being the penthouse. I start to feel all my energy, my attention withdrawing inside. Collecting into a single point. Me. In my mind's eye, the form of the self can be seen as a tiny, tiny, subtle, quiet point of invisible light. quiet, almost fragile. Have to hold this thought with the utmost care. No force, no impatience, almost surrendering into the thought. And I know I have hit the truth when the feeling of peace starts to wash through my mind. And there's no worries or tension. The feeling that everything's okay. I am a soul. I am eternal. I know everything outside will come and go, keep changing. But this sense of self is like an anchor. Going deeply into the quiet, simple feeling of being a soul, an eternal being, not physical at all. But very peaceful. Om Shanti. Until next time, thank you for joining. Om Shanti. Have a lovely week, and perhaps we'll see you on Saturday. Take care.